Hello everyone and welcome to regalstamping.com. My name is Krista Thomas and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'm going to share the new Big Shot embossing mats, which will be found in the new 2018-19 annual catalog on page 221. So what do you get when you order the Big Shot embossing mats? The first thing you get is a white impressions pad, and then a gray thick silicone rubber mat, and finally a blue thin silicone rubber mat. This one is just paper thin. And when you order your set of these embossing mats, you definitely want to keep the instructions that come with it. On the reverse side, you'll find 4 different languages, and I've highlighted my language so that it's easy to spot when I'm in the middle of a project. At the bottom of the page, you have several different sandwich options. The first is your standard sandwich, which is just for cutting, and it does not require the use of these new pads. The second option is cut and emboss sandwich, which does use the new pads, and the emboss only sandwich, which also uses them. Today, the emboss only sandwich is what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to set these aside and pull in my Big Shot. So the sandwich for embossing only requires the use of the multi-purpose platform with just tab 1. I'm going to slide that in. And then you need a standard cutting mat, which is the clear plate, and then a die. I'm going to use one from the Petals and More Thinlits die. And it says to place it cutting side up. Next, I need a piece of cardstock. I'm using Tranquil Tide, and I'm placing that right over the top. And then I'm using the blue thin silicone rubber mat. And finally, the white impressions pad. And I'm going to run this through and back through, and then carefully remove all these parts. And this, whoops, I was off center. This is what you get. Can you see that? Okay. But I was playing around and I wondered what it would look like if I used the opposite side of the die. So let me show you how I did that. Same sandwich, multi-purpose platform with tab 1 down, and a clear embossing mat. And then my die cutting side down this time. So it's against that cutting mat, and that's okay because a cutting mat is just for that, getting cut. And then I place my cardstock over it, and the blue silicone mat, and finally the white impressions pad. Let's see what that does. Removing everything, and look at that. Here's the first one. And now the second one. And that's pretty cool. But I'm not done yet. Let's do that again, but we're going to add something to it. I have another piece of the Tranquil Tide cardstock. This time I'm going to rub it with an embossing buddy to remove any static or oils from my hands from handling the paper, because we're going to do some heat embossing as well as just impression embossing. Okay, So now I need my die, and I'm going to place it cutting side down on my Teflon mat that I'm working on. And I'm going to use a Versamark pad and ink up the die. And place it on the clear cutting pad. And then I'm going to place my cardstock. Whoops, I got to flip it over because I rubbed that side. I'm going to put this on it very carefully because I don't want it to move, because now that's got ink on it. Blue thin silicone rubber mat, and finally the white impressions pad. And I'm going to go through and back through. Okay. And now what this has done has pushed that framelit with the Versamark ink into the paper. So let me move this out of the way. I'm going to get my coffee filter, which I like to use when I'm pouring embossing powder. It just makes it easy to pour it right back into the container. Tap off any extra. Look at that. Okay, I'm going to pour this back in, get it out of my way so that I don't blow powder everywhere. I'm going to place this cardstock in here. And my heat gun always takes just a few seconds to heat up when I haven't used it for a while. There we go. Once it starts, you just follow it slowly down, cooking each section and melting that powder. And I used clear embossing powder because I just wanted my impression to be a darker shade of the same color as the cardstock. And so that's what I got. Isn't that cool? Let me show you how I added that to a card. There's my finished card. You see that? I just love this new technique, and there are so many possibilities for it. I hope that you'll try this at home when you get your own embossing mats, and thanks for joining me today.